House and Baseball Classic is up at 2 in the morning, and there's wall-to-wall March Madness as well as the Caps and the Ravens doing stuff and spring training. This guy covers all things Washington Wizards, and, we like him around here because of his Twitter handle, which is Bullets Forever, which rings near and dear to my dad's heart, even though he left the planet on 1992. He is Kevin Broom. He's one of our defending champions. Having him back on here to talk about a very active week here this week for the Washington Wizards, who are in the rarefied spot of first place in the Southeast Division, and really putting a commanding lead here together, Kevin, right?
Yeah, they've had a great season so far, and their defense has been slipping a little lately, but hopefully they can get that back together in time for the playoffs.
Well, unprecedented success, you would agree, right? Like, this is the first time for your Bullets Forever Twitter handle and bulletsforever.com, and your passion for the team has people really believing you could win a championship. I don't think you really believed they were going to win the NBA title a couple of years ago, right?
Well, no, and I really don't think that they're going to win a championship at all. I mean, there's a possibility. I think they could get to the finals. They'd have a really tough time against Golden State or San Antonio. But there's nobody in the East that's head and shoulders better than they are. That's for sure. I mean, Cleveland, I think you'd have to say, would be considered a stronger team. Cleveland has their own serious defensive problems, but
that's how they've lost 23 games, right? I mean, there's a real difference between them and the Warriors when you're talking practically over the course of a season, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, with Cleveland, there's a difference also between regular season Cleveland and playoffs Cleveland, at least there has been. So, that's something else to throw in the mix. But, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that the Wizards could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals or even to the NBA Finals. But winning a championship is, like I said, you've got two just outstanding, really three outstanding teams out west that the Wizards would have a tough time against. But Golden State and San Antonio would be the toughest ones.
As a guy that watches this closer than I do or have over the last couple of years, and certainly I watched them play beginning of the season back in October and early November and thought, well, they're not very good, and they weren't very good at that time, and the bench wasn't very good. Of all of the things here, if you were to encapsulate this, and let's say they take the Cavaliers 7 games and lose in the Eastern Conference Final, that's a hell of a year if that were to happen,
Sure.
If that's the way it plays out. What would you see from the outside coming in if I landed off the lunar surface and said, how the hell did the Wizards get 15 games over 500?
Yeah. Well, the simple reason is, 3 reasons. John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Otto Porter, all three having career seasons, the best they've ever played. All three of them playing at all-star, borderline all-NBA level. And that in itself is why. I mean, all three of those guys were high draft picks, and you figured that, they were high picks because they were going to have a chance to, be these kinds of players. And this year it all came together for all three of them, and they've been healthy.
Well, and then there's this week and the schedule ahead and the teams they're going to see who would be probably the teams they're going to be seeing next month, right? Boston, Atlanta, they're going to see Cleveland next week. I mean, this is a real sort of primer over the next 10 days. And while a lot of teams are, putting everybody on the bench, I don't know that Scotty Brooks is going to have a game this week where he's going to say, hey, John and Bradley, take the night off. We're just going to play B team tonight. I don't think that's where the mindset of this franchise is at this point. But obviously, around the league, there's a lot of that going on as well.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the one opportunity for that might be Brooklyn. Hopefully, my idea of a day off for the guy, the big guys, the starting lineup basically would be that they can play, 24 to 28 minutes and run up a big lead on Brooklyn and then sort of just turn it over to the bench and let them finish it out, and so that they can get rest because they play Cleveland the following night on a back-to-back. So, it would be good if they could get some rest. I don't know if you sit guys out in that game because, if you sit Wall, Beal, Porter, in any of those three, that I don't think the Wizards, they might still beat Brooklyn because Brooklyn is that bad, but it would be tight.
Well, it's been
they still need the wins.
It's
They
been a
still need to
rough
get the
week,
win.
right? I mean, they lost 3 out of 4 going into Boston on Monday night, and more than anything, they've been pretty good on the road. I mean, I was up late with them in Phoenix, in Denver, Sacramento. I didn't even know what the floor looked like in Sacramento or Minnesota. A couple of nights later, but they have another one of these things that they're staring down the barrel of, and I don't know that it really matters or how you feel about positioning and seeding, and for me, it's all about health on game one. The only games that matter for the Wizards or the Caps at this point, or the Terps before last week, and we saw what befell them on Thursday night in the Xavier game, is the playoff game's the only thing that matters at this point. So I don't get too worked up about this, but you don't want to see them go on the road next week and fall on their face out in L.A.
Well, right, and I think positioning does matter some because, for example, 3 is a much better. If you're at 3, you're going to get a better matchup than if you are seeded 4, for example. And then if you can get 2, get to that second seed, you also have a better chance of getting to the finals, or getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, and not playing Cleveland in the second round, that sort of thing. So, the seeding does matter, and I think it would if the Wizards could get to second, that would be great. And first place is not complete. I mean, first seed is not completely out of reach for them either because they're only a couple games back on Cleveland.
Well, especially when you're going to see Cleveland, too, so you can pick your own game up there if you have that opportunity on Saturday night. That'll be a big game this week. We're on the line with Kevin Broom. He covers all things Wizards. His website is Bullets Forever, also linked in with SB Nation as well, and you can follow him out on Twitter as well at Bullets Forever, as well as his personal Twitter at Broom_Kevin, and he's...
Now, real quick, just one thing. Bullets Forever is not mine. I joined Bullets Forever, but there's a whole community of writers there that are all covering basically every aspect of the Bullets, the Mystics, and these guys. Everybody does a great job there, and it's a cast of a couple dozen people who work on the site. I'm just like one of the cogs in the wheel.
No worries. Lots of red, white, and blue there, I would say. Hey, for the Bullets Forever part of this and signing on with that, there's a Baltimore part of this, and I know you've been with them, thick and thin and all that stuff. Every time I put anything about the Caps or the Wizards, there's an old line part of Baltimore here that hates everything about it because of the move. But the Bullets, I was standing at the top of the Verizon Center, and I always forget this until I remember it. And, the press box is way up high at a Caps game. And I look out, and the Baltimore Bullets banners are hung there, And when I get Ted on and when I chat with Ted, because we had Barry Trotz earlier this week at Greenmount Station, but when I talk to Ted, I'm going to ask him a little bit about that because I think that they have really tried to be respectful and understand that Baltimore is still part of their market and coming up and playing at Towson in camp 2 years ago. But more than that, the fact that when they win, they become our team, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they used to play, a couple regular season games up there,
sure,
in Baltimore, and I personally, I think that would be great if they would do that again.
One of the highlights of my life back in the early 90s was being asked to do the Sirius, opening when they played the Atlanta Hawks at the Baltimore, then the arena. It wasn't even First Mariner at that point, certainly not Royal Farms. I got to go down on the floor and, Georgie Murasan, I got to do that with the lights all flooding around, and it was like, there were only 12,000 people there, and
sure.
and it was sort of a nod back in Abe's day, and I think Wes and Susan were still running the operation at that point. But I got that was that's a top 50 cool thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Yeah, it was cool. So, I remember, and I know Ted's worked on this. And look, I think they've worked on trying to get their own fan base together to make that place jump. And I was down there 2 Friday nights ago for the Maryland fiasco against Northwestern with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Scott Van Pelt. The amount of noise I heard in there for a basketball game, I've never heard that for a Wizards game there.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get that,
Yeah. Yeah, I will say the place was pretty nuts during the Jordan era. I remember I was up in my seats in the upper deck when Jerry Stackhouse dunked a buzzer beater dunk to beat the Lakers, and the place was madhouse. It was a madhouse that night.
Well, the problem with that was when the
that
Lakers
dunk
would
went
come in, they would have, 4,000 people in Kobe jerseys or Shaq jerseys,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm just talking about the volume of noise when Stackhouse threw that down was pretty intense.
You're talking about 15 years ago now, 20 years ago.
I know.
Look, they are hoping to incite that kind of magic, right? I mean, the Terps that Friday night, it was full on red. It was full on a home game. As it was pointed out by my dear friend John Crispin from the Big Ten Network, beer was involved, which usually isn't involved at collegiate sports. And, I'd like to see what a steamy crowd would look like there for a Game 5 2-2 matchup with the Celtics coming in, the second week of May. I'd like to know what that looks like. And I think every Wizards fan would like to drink from that as this thing grows. They are the growth brand around here. They really are.
Yeah. Now, the only other time I can think of is, again, we're going back, 12 years now, would be to 2005 when the Gilbert Arenas, who is it, Jared Jeffries and Jameson and Larry Hughes, when they closed out against Chicago Bulls in the first round. That was a pretty intense night, too, there at the Verizon Center. I was in the press box all the way up in the rafters that night. Well, and that was pretty great. There was a lot of noise that night.
Busy week. Atlanta in on Wednesday, Brooklyn in on Friday, and then they take to the road. Cleveland, 2 games in L.A., Clippers and Lakers, and then on to Utah, and then on to April to be baseball season when they hit Golden State for an 8 o'clock game night before opening day. It's actually the night baseball kind of opens up on that Sunday night, April 2nd, so you'll get a chance to see Steph Curry launch some threes. Who knows? Maybe that's the night Golden State takes the whole night off. Well, we can only hope, right?
Right, that's right. The Wizards could use that win.
Kev, great checking in with you, man. We will be following Bullets Forever, not your site, just a part of what you're a part of, as well as Broom_Kevin out on Twitter as well. It is Bullets Forever and all things Wizards as we wind up the season here. And, hey, it's going to be exciting times for everybody. I think if you love baseball, baseball will be going on every night. But between the Caps and the Wizards, I think they're going to keep us pretty busy into late April and early May as I grow my beard. Appreciate the time, Kev. Thanks for coming on, man. He is Kevin Broom. He is at Bullets Forever, and that's out at SB Nation, as well as Broom_Kevin out on Twitter, covering all things red, white, and blue. Well, the red and the white and the yellow and the black and the turtles are no more. March Madness marches on this week. I had to cancel my flight to San Jose, but I will be out in Arizona later on this week for the NFL owners' meetings, be covering all things there in the John Harbaugh breakfast on Monday, as well as whatever is going to happen with the Oakland Raiders next week. I'll be doing lots of NFL conversation with lots of high-ranking officials and cool people next week from the Biltmore in Arizona. You won't want to miss that out on Facebook and Twitter and anywhere the internet is served. We also have our London trip underway at WNST.net under the Road Trips tab. You can find us there. If you need more information, please send me an email, nasty@WNST.net. Anything you missed this week, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. From wherever the internet is served, you can listen to what you want, when you want, where you want. We podcast, broadcast, and you can download the TuneIn Radio app and listen live from anywhere in the world. I tested that in New Zealand. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is powered up by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. That's headlines, box scores, news, standings, videos, all the good stuff at WNST's morning newspaper, powered up by Planet Fitness. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. He's all geeked up about the draft, as always, and Ravens signings, and we will see how the Brandon Carr thing works out. And, plenty of news. There's lots of things happening here leading up to opening day, as well as the World Baseball Classic this week. So plenty of things on our mind's eye, including our Barry Trotz interview from Greenmount Station in Hampstead. Check that out. As well in our audio vault. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.